And
hello, everyone, and welcome to DojoLIVE, connecting tech experts like you. My name is Dulce, and I am from the recruiting team at Nearsoft. And I would like to introduce you my co-host from sunny California. We have Tulio Siragusa. Tulio, are you ready for this?
Yes, typically it's sunny, but it's been raining for almost 8 weeks.
Oh,
So
that's a shame.
I've decided to file for a refund. I want my money back because the sun's been gone for 8 weeks. But yes, I'm glad to be here from usually sunny Southern California.
Okay, awesome. Such a shame for the not sunny weather today. And from Mexico City, we have Carlos Ponce. How are you doing, Carlos?
I'm doing my best, the best I can. I got a terrible cold, but I'm here to crank out.
Awesome. That's
Okay.
the spirit. That's the DojoLIVE spirit. And well, in this edition, we have our very special guest. He is the General Counsel and CEO for AIMACTEK. He's responsible for the management of the company's legal department and legal entities, and serves on the executive board. Welcome to DojoLIVE, Fayiaz Chaudhri. I hope that I pronounced everything right.
Oh, it was absolutely perfectly pronounced. And don't worry, it's my parents' fault. I had no say in the name. They came up with it. But no, delighted to be here. You know, a great opportunity for us to discuss and chat about machine learning and AI. And yes, I have 2 titles at the moment, but I'm hoping to give one of them away soon and just stay as a CEO once we start hiring a few more people.
Great, awesome. So before we talk about today's topic, please, Fayiaz, tell us more about your company, AIMACTEK.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about myself and AIMACTEK. So I've been a general counsel and a legal executive for the last 20 years or so. So prior to AIMACTEK, I was at Epson. I was at Atos. I was a general counsel for Atos until December of last year. Before that, I was a general counsel at Infosys for about 5 years. Prior to that, I was heading up a team in Steria, and then prior to that, I was the head of legal for EMEA for Epson. And now we're going back about 16, 17 years. But at that point, I was heading up a team for PSINet, an IT company. So I've been in the IT sector and a legal executive for 20 years or so. I've gone through the frustrations of being an in-house lawyer and also a private practice law firm lawyer, and the things I couldn't do, wanted to do, and the things I wasn't able to add value on, which was really important to me. And so the opportunity came for me to join AIMACTEK. I was helping them a little bit with their product anyway. And then when they asked me to come and run the company, I jumped on the opportunity. So I joined AIMACTEK in the first week of January this year. So it's quite new. It's been about 2.5 months since I joined. AIMACTEK itself is a machine learning AI company. Our first product is for the legal space. So it allows for search, review, and analysis of your existing contracts. It allows for the risk analysis of your existing contracts, and also allows you to do automated markup of your new contracts. So all the things I couldn't do in my 20 years, you can now do with the platform. You can, a 140-page MSA will now take you about an hour and a half rather than 4 days. An NDA would probably take you 5 minutes. And if I want to go back, or if an organization wants to go and say, I want to review my top 100 customers, and I want to make sure I have, let's say Nearsoft want to do that and say, hey, I want to review my top 100 customers, and I want to make sure that I have a non-solicitation clause because I don't want my customers hiring my people. If you go to your legal department right now, they will say, okay, we need to put a team together. We need to find the 100 contracts. We need to review them. We need to take out, the provisions. We need to put it in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, and then eventually we'll come up with an answer in a month's time. With a platform, it takes 3 seconds.
Wow, awesome.
Really?
So that's kind of what it's doing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying brilliant. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Today's topic, this one you chose, it's technology in the legal landscape, revolutionizing the legal landscape through machine learning AI platforms. Why did you choose this topic?
So it's a passion of mine. It's what AIMACTEK does too, and it's one of the reasons why I left a guaranteed retirement and came and joined AIMACTEK and went for a more of a startup mentality. I mean, I was an executive at Atos on the executive board, paid in the same way as you'd expect for an executive. But my passion was actually to try and make sure that the frustrations which all of the lawyers face in their transactional business are eliminated, so that they can support the business that much better, and also people who are developing legal departments can retain their staff that much better, because no one likes to do 100 NDAs every day and spend all day doing that. They want to do more value-add stuff, something which is much more developmental in their career. And so that's the reason, I chose this topic. It's always been a passion of mine. The technology wasn't there until actually even last year to really do these things properly. I mean, we went from keyword analysis to natural language processing, and only now are we really using deep machine learning in these kind of topics, and particularly with the sort of the new techniques which have come out from Stanford, where you can do sort of partial learning. So you teach the machine learning engine, English first, and then you teach it legal English. And so through partial learning techniques, it makes it easier for data digestion. So once the technology was there to do that, this was a passion of mine and always has been. And I really love to talk about technology and how we can change the legal scape. Because as it happens, I also have an engineering degree for my sins.
Wow,
That's
great.
amazing. Can I just jump in real quick? This reminded me of something. I was a PricewaterhouseCoopers a few lifetimes ago, working in the transaction services practice, specifically M&A, and the amount of time spent reviewing documents was, the amount of people and teams involved was incredibly time consuming. These are pretty significant documents to review, specifically with large M&A transactions. Is there a particular target segment of the legal space that you're going after, or is it broad? Can you give us a little bit more of a flavor of where you're focusing?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually the M&A user case is a really good one. Nowadays, if you want to do a data room analysis, if I want to buy a company, let's say I want to buy Nearsoft, the first thing I want to do, or Nearsoft, sorry, the first thing I want to do is I want to have a look at the contracts and understand whether you have what liability provisions you've agreed to. Do you have a limitation of liability? And for that, I send it to external counsel. They go through the data room of 1,000, 2,000, however many contracts there are, and they do an analysis and say these are the liability provisions they've agreed to. And then that really it sort of allows me to then understand whether it's a company I want to acquire or not, and also if I am going to acquire, on what terms am I going to acquire that company. And that takes forever. I mean, if you want to do it in-house, you can't because you don't have the resources. If you send it to external counsel, they charge you, $300-400 an hour. It takes a few of their lawyers a few weeks to go through it. Now, with this platform, you can literally do the data room analysis in a matter of seconds. You don't even have to send it to external law firms anymore. If I wanted to do a data room analysis of of all of the contracts and find my limitation liability provision and sort them out per contract and then export it in an email, it would basically take me 3 seconds. It would take me the time it takes me to type in liability and press search, and the rest it does automatically. So I think that's a great user case. For me, the user cases for this platform are sort of fourfold, and really. The first is I want to be able to analyze my existing contracts, whether it's for mergers, acquisitions, or whether it's for trend analysis, whether it's to see what negotiation, where we've got to negotiation, or whether it's for compliance or due diligence or any other factor. For whatever reason I need to be able to analyze my contracts quickly, efficiently. The second piece is I want to be able to reuse some of the stuff I've done before. I mean, lawyers do that all the time. But if there's a really great clause I drafted, 2 years ago, I have to go through my database, find out which contract it was, try and work out where I remember it. I drafted it and try and see if I can reuse that. So this allows you to do that really quickly. The third piece which it does, which I think is a value add, which a legal department can provide as a value add, is the risk analysis function. I mean, with this platform, lawyers can literally go into their contracts, let's say, look at their top 50 customers and say, I've just analyzed the risk in terms of the SLA provisions I've agreed to. So I'm going to go back to my CEO or my CEO and tell them where they should really push or really position extra people, because where do they need them? Which are the contracts where I've got high risk provision there, where if they want to add extra people, they can do that. And the final piece, which we all suffer from in the business world, and I suffer from now, being now the other side of the spectrum as a CEO, is that lawyers never tend to respond or do the work quickly enough for business people, whether it's salespeople, whether it's executives. And to be able to mark up a contract or 120-page contract within an hour and a half allows you to give that value straight away, and allows you to really compete, but also to come to the right caliber of response for your business people, which takes out the frustrations, allows your legal department to be positioned in a very different way.
I have some follow-up questions specifically around how amazing of a disruption this is. But before we do that, I just want to remind anyone who's watching the live stream who wants to ask a question, they can do so on Twitter. They can just post a question on DojoLIVE, at DojoLIVE on Twitter, and we'd be happy to take those questions while we're on. And speaking of questions, I think we have one from an audience now. Carlos?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question actually from one of our teammates, Wendy McLean. Okay, and Wendy is asking, this is a question for Fayiaz, of course, and Fayiaz, does your product have a feature that sets your company or the product apart from your competitors?
Yeah, so I think this is where we initially talked about how technology has developed. I mean, people who've tried to do this 2-3 years ago and have tried to use a mixture of keyword hacks and natural language processing are 2 years behind. That's not where we are now. And so the key thing is, let's look at the search function. The key thing with the search function is there can't be any noise. It has to give you exactly what you want and only what you want. Because if I have to go in and start to filter the results, what's the point of automating it in the first place? So what we use is deep machine learning, so machine learning algorithms, which are understanding what you want from that feature, understanding your request, applying that request to the contract language which they find, and then giving the results which are appropriate to you. So it's real deep machine learning. So for example, I could type in and say, hey, I want to look at the confidentiality provision. And if there is a MSA which says, this is not, it says protection of information as a heading. Because it's not headed confidentiality, makes no difference, because the algorithm is actually reading the clause, understanding this is basically a confidentiality clause, and when it's providing you the results, it's providing you the right results for you. So I think that's key. The intelligence of the search is interesting. With the risk analysis, it's rule-based. So we allow organizations to revise the risk rules in accordance with their own risk appetite, which really means that it has to be, you have to put deep machine learning algorithms which have the ability to understand your rules, because you can change them, and then apply them again to the contract. And in this way, for example, I'll give you a simple example. The algorithm needs to know that 30 days in arrears payment terms is a completely different risk profile to 30 days in advance. Yeah, that's a good example. And then finally, for the markup, the fun bit is the intelligent bits, and that's what we like. And again, it's algorithm based, and we have our own proprietary algorithms, and that is what we call our secret sauce. And really, with what we're trying to do is say to you, yes, if it's close to your language, we're saying yes, it's acceptable. That's the easy bit. If it doesn't match your standard language, we're saying it's not acceptable. That's the easy bit. The interesting bit and the fun bit is the yellows. What the yellow is saying to you is, it doesn't match with your standard language, but I, the platform, having read your standard language, understood what you find acceptable, can tell you that this clause is going to be acceptable to you. And that's where the algorithms and the deep machine learning come into play. And this is what really sets us apart. And as you'd expect with algorithms, and for those of you who know about machine learning, it's all about refinement of them. It's how you refine them, how do you come up with them. If you take them from a standard library, you're not going to get the same accuracy as you do if you actually have proper data scientists who know what they're doing, fields, mathematics prize winners who can then refine them appropriately. Also, it really, your data set really impacts it. We've put in about 6,000 different variations of contracts in there as an initial set. So there is nothing it hasn't seen before. or won't have or won't be able to understand. It really sets us apart. Our technology is right there at the very forefront, and we're doing things no one else can do. So at the moment, no one in the market can do the risk analysis with the rules being customizable. No one else in the market can do the 140-page MSA. So they can do NDAs, which they've tried because it's a very simplistic document, but no one can do a complicated document like we can. And actually, no one has the intelligence in the search we do.
Oh, awesome.
I like it. It's bold. Go ahead, Dulce. I know you had a couple of questions. I'll leave mine for a little bit later.
Okay, great. I have a question. It is amazing how you talk about technology. It really looks that you love talk about it and that it's one of your passion. But how did you find this passion? How did you know that you wanted to do this?
So I've been a lawyer for 20 years, but I've always been in the technology sector. And originally, my first degree was in engineering. So I am actually a qualified electrical and electronic engineer. And I gave that up because I was not very good at it. and I think the first book which I got, which was Engineering Mathematics, blew me away. But then in the second semester, when we got the Advanced Engineering Mathematics book, it was even worse. And so I realized very quickly that engineering, although it was a passion of mine as a youngster, is not really a profession I'm going to do too well in. And so it was the case of, well, what do I do? And I kind of fell into law after engineering. But because I had that technical background, I've always stayed and lived in the technology sector. So all through my career, whether it's PSINet or Epson or Steria or Infosys or Atos, they're all in the technology sectors in one form or the other. And so I've always been there, and it's always been sort of a passion of mine. I've dealt with, and I've kept a very close eye on how, particularly data analytics and data sciences and machine learning have developed over the years, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, because I always thought technology is going to get there for lawyers too. And we are the worst people. I mean, I can say this as a former and a present lawyer of some degree, of little competence, but at least great CV. But I can say that to you very, very clearly, that we lawyers are the worst when it comes to accepting technology, because we're brought up on the basis of precedents about what happened in the past is how we want to do it in the future, and that's the way we're taught and trained. So we're really, really bad at absorbing technology. And I always thought, there's going to be a time when the technology is good enough that the accuracy is there for lawyers. So we let go of our inhibitions. We let go of the case that, I want to recheck everything this platform is doing, and then be able to use technology to do everything so much more efficiently and so much more proactively and with so much more value add. And so it's always been a passion of mine, and I've always followed it for that reason. And I think we're there now.
So it begs the question in terms of adoption, right? So it's a major disruption. Let's face it, it's a major disruption. Lawyers are professional services industry, and it's based on time. A lot of the billings is based on time spent, right? So you're in essence introducing this concept that what would take 20 hours might take only 1 hour. Does that have any impact on how firms might be looking at this in terms of resisting adoption? What are you seeing so far?
So I think that's an amazingly good and well put together question. So it goes in 2 parts. The first is for the in-house lawyer or the in-house department. So law firms of Nearsoft, law firms of Fossils, Neiman Marcus, Atos, those people. For them, it's an absolute godsend, because what this platform allows them to do is to take away all the pressure of having to respond to RFPs, having to respond to contracts quickly, because now they can do it. They don't have pressure from the business for doing it anymore. It also allows general counsels to reposition themselves as not a back office function, but hey, I'm a strategic leader of the organization. And I'm a strategic leader because I can do analytics on my contracts now quickly and efficiently, and I can give you the results of that, which will help you in making your business strategy and your business decisions. So, a simple example is, let's say I'm a GC. I go to my top 50 customers. I look at the SLA provisions. Now I can do it in a fraction of a second. I can go back to my CEO and say that, you have 10 extra people. I would put them on customer X, Y, and Z because the SLA provisions we have there are very high risk. Or I've gone through our top 100 customers. I can't believe we don't have non-competes in 50 of them. I think of those as something we need to put in play. Or here are, I've gone through my contracts. Here are the main obligations we're missing from a time frame perspective, and these are what we have to do. So it allows them to do a lot of value add. So for in-house lawyers, it's an absolute no-brainer, and they're jumping towards it. With law firms, you're absolutely correct. What law firms tend to do is they say, look, we're going to charge by the hour. So what you would expect is that if we say to them, it's going to take you less hours, they're going to say, well, that's going to mean we make less money. That's actually not true, because more and more, and I can say this as a GC for 20 years, more and more people like me are asking our external partners at law firms to say, I need a fixed fee. Because what I've realized is actually, it's harder for me, and you would know this from your entity as well, I would rather you say to me, it's going to cost me $6,000, and it cost me $6,000, rather than you say, well, my estimate is $5,000, but now it's cost you $5,200. Because for that extra $200, I have to go through the PO process again. It's a complete waste of my time. It takes me forever to do. There's like 10 different approvals I have to do. So really, more and more in-house lawyers are saying to law firms, just give us a fixed fee, particularly for transactional work. Just tell me how much it's going to cost. Just give me a fee. And if you want internal, hourly hour rates sort of recognition for your internal purposes, do whatever you want, but I just need a fixed fee. And so the minute that happens, and it's happening more and more, the quicker you can do it means you're actually making more margin as a law firm. So you're charging them the same, or you're charging them, similar, but if it's taking you, 90% less time, you're actually making 90% more margin. And this is particularly true for the small and medium-sized firms who are trying to compete with the bigger firms. And how do they compete with them? Because we have the 20, 30 big law firms. And if you look at the large, take away the multinationals, just look at the large US law firms, you probably have another 20. So you have those top 50 firms. But you have hundreds of thousands of law firms, regional firms, medium firms, small firms, who are trying to compete with these people and are trying to get the business. How do they get the business? Well, they get the business by giving better pricing. They get the business by allowing you to do fixed pricing, by saying, look, our price will not change, and we'll sort out the hourly rate for our admin on the back end by ourselves. And so for them, this platform becomes a competitive advantage, because if it allows them to do something, let's say, rather than 5 days, takes them an hour and a half, even if they're charging half of what they normally charge, they're still making a lot of money. But you're absolutely right about one thing, though, that it's still a mindset issue, though. You still have to change the mindset. The thought process has to change. So it doesn't matter how good that technology is, doesn't matter how obvious the benefits are. Lawyers are notoriously bad for just being stuck in their ways, and I was one of them. So I agree with that. But it still needs that mindset change. And it's how do you change that mindset? And the way we position it, we say to GCs, look, this is going to actually help your career. If you want to be a strategic leader and you want to be, on the board and making those decisions, this is the way to do it. If you want to develop your team and not lose all your lawyers, this is the way to do it. Stop them having to do all the grunt work, get them to do some better stuff. And for law firms, it becomes a cost issue and a pricing issue.
Sounds absolutely reasonable and logical. So how far along is your company in terms of traction in the marketplace? Where are you in your evolution of the product itself?
So the product was completed. I mean, it's cloud-based, so it's based on Google Private Cloud, so it has all of the right enterprise securities, tick boxes there. The other thing we do, which I think is very, very important for lawyers, is that the data doesn't transfer anywhere. It doesn't go cross-border. It stays within your host country. So if I'm a US company, it stays within the US. Actually, probably stays within the same, because we choose the buckets which are next to your offices, so it probably stays in the same city. If I'm a UK company, it stays in the UK. If I have a US office and a UK office, we can actually keep your data from the UK in the UK and your US data in the US. So there's no cross-border transactional stuff, cross-border data protection issues. So I think that's important. And then for us, because it's cloud-based, we keep adding functionality. So our platform was ready and is licensable and was from the 3rd of January. And it's now being adopted, and we have clients which are a full spectrum, really. We have very small in-house departments. We have one department which only has 3 people, and I said, well, why do you want the platform? They said, because we're building through acquisitions, And for every acquisition, if we can just do the data room analysis ourselves, it pays for itself and many times over. So that's for them. So we go from there to large in-house departments of large IT service providers. You know, so I think those are customers. I'm trying not to name names on purpose because we have non-publicity clause with some of them. And then we also have law firms, both big and small. Actually, if I'm being very honest, and this is a very bad thing to say, you know, in a public forum, but I prefer when the platform is adopted by medium and small size law firms rather than the larger law firms. Because what the larger law firms are going to do, for them, the price is a rounding error. They don't really care. It's like, you know, it's nominal. It's nominal for them. So they use it because they like to have all the tools available to their partners and their employees. How much they use it is, you know, it varies. For small and medium-sized law firms, this is an absolute necessity because this is helping them generate business, keep business, and actually make money. So they're heavy users of it. So I really enjoy the heavy usage of it. It's not because it makes us any more money. It doesn't. We have a flat fee. But actually because I quite enjoy the fact that it's being adopted and used in the manner we actually envisaged. So the platform's ready. We have customers all around the spectrum, from insurance companies to in-house departments for retailers to IT service providers to companies you know who are forefront of their fields, who you would know very well. Maybe they start with a G and have a GLE at the end. And so those kind of companies, and then we have law firms too. So we have smaller law firms and also some of the main larger ones too. So it's quite a spectrum of customers. But then it's an evolving thing. So the next thing we're looking at is to say, can we get to a stage where we can get OCR, well, not OCR technology, we've already gone that far. So can we get to a stage where we can actually recognize your handwritten notes in the same way as we can recognize documents? So you can have the same functionality for all of your handwritten notes, which you do for your documents. Now, people would say that's easy to do because, look, I can do it with my check. You know, I can sign my check now. So maybe that's the technology is there. It's not really there. For unformatted data, it's not there. For very strictly formatted piece, like the signature of a check, yeah, you can do that, but you can't. I mean, we struggled even with the OCR stuff. So we struggled with scanned documents when we first started. We looked at everything on the market, and you know, even the big boys who have spent millions developing it. And what we realized was, if you scan a document, the OCR technology currently can't even work out, or can't work out, whether it's a 4.3 or whether it's a 43, because with an image, it thinks the point is next to the 3. So it's 43. That doesn't matter for most people, but for lawyers, it really matters because it messes up the whole numbering. And you know, when you're doing searches, it destroys it. And so with us, what we ended up having to do was to build on existing OCR technology using deep machine learning algorithms, which could then differentiate between columns and, you know, points and all sorts of stuff. And so that's one of the developments we did, but we're continually developing stuff. So handwritten notes is kind of the next stage of our development, and we're really excited of where we're going there.
Exciting. As always, when it gets to get really interesting, we're out of time. It always happens this way. So before I hand it back to Dulce to wrap it up, it sounds you're really passionate about this, and I think it's amazing, and I agree with you 100%. The mid-sized companies have the ability to basically compete with the large guys in a way that they couldn't before. I think it's brilliant. Any words of wisdom that you'd like to share in terms of breaking through and changing the mindset of a market? Because it's a challenging thing to do, and it's certainly something you're having to do. Any words of wisdom you'd like to share with anybody else who struggle with that in their building of their product in terms of educating the markets and changing their mindset when introducing a disruption?
So I think we're changing the mindset with any kind of entrenched sort of sector like the legal industry is. It's important that the cost-benefit analysis is so skewed one way that it makes it an absolute no-brainer. I think that's really important. So the way we do it is we show how it can help. It can help in-house departments with their, you know, development of their people, retention of their people, strategic value for the general counsels, and for them to be able to do things they can't otherwise do. And the same with the law firm. For them, you know, changing their mindset means showing them it can actually make them money. So it's not a cost, it's not a IT cost which they're having to absorb. It's actually something which is a value add and value generation. And I give you a very quick example. So we're speaking to a law firm and they said to us, okay, I understand the two functionalities, but what about the risk analysis? What are we ever going to do with the risk analysis function, of existing contracts? What will we ever do with that? And I said, well, how do you retain customers at the moment? They say, oh, we do free training. And I said, well, you don't no longer have, well, you can do that, but this is an additional customer retention tool. You can now go to your customers and say, hey, because it didn't take us very long, we just analyzed everything you negotiated in the last year or so, and we can tell you, these are the provisions where you're off market and you're doing a really bad job. These are the provisions which you're doing really well in. And also doing some analytics, we can also tell you that these are provisions you may want to change your wording on because they may not be enforceable. So that kind of analytical, dashboard information allows you to retain customers. So I think with changing the mindset, it's all about showing people that the benefit is so great that it outweighs any sort of apprehension they may have. And the second piece, I mean, this happens in every industry, not just lawyers, with AI and machine learning and robotics and automation, where people think, oh, it's going to take away jobs. It doesn't take away jobs. All it really does is allows you to actually do better quality work because you're not stuck doing the grunt work or for all your day because it's taking you 5 days. So imagine if I can actually develop as a lawyer because it's not taking me 5 days to do MSA, it's now taking me an hour and a half. Or I can do better, interesting stuff, which I really want to do, but I never get the time to do because it's taking me all day to do grunt work. So I think that's the way to change mindset. The benefits and the personal and organizational really help with that. But it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge.
I bet. Thank you. It's been wonderful talking with you, Dulce.
So, well, time goes faster when you're having fun, huh? So thank you so much, Fayiaz, for getting to chat with us. It was so much fun, and it's incredible how you are so passionate about what you do. So thank you for that. And also thank you, Tulio. Thank you, Carlos, for joining us today. We'll see you, everyone, next week. I don't know, Carlos, if you have what's upcoming for DojoLIVE.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna mention that. Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute, right? Okay. Next week, this is just a quick announcement before we all go. Next week, we are going to be chatting with Simon Maple, the Director of Developer Relationships from a company called Sync, SYNK.io. So let's see if we have the topic that we're going to be chatting about. No, we don't have it yet. It'll be there in a minute, folks. Stay tuned on dojo.nearsoft.com for this for another fun. I don't know. I'm just thinking of ways to describe how beneficial it would be for all of our viewers out there just to get there, to go to the site and watch all of them. There's about a little bit over 160. But for this one, the next one, next week's is I don't have the topic yet, but. Again, stay tuned for Simon Maple, Director of Developer Relationships at sync.io. And that's all I have. Dulce, thank you, Dulce. Thank you, Tulio. And of course, thanks to our guest, Fayiaz. It was a pleasure and an honor to chat with you here. Although I was a little bit more on the silent side, can speak. Thank you so much.
It was an absolute delight. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your and your hospitality. It was wonderful to be here.
Cheers. Stay on for a little bit.